Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this press conference following the ordinary December European Council yesterday, the Euro Summit at 27 this morning, and the European Council in its Article 50 Brexit formation this morning and early afternoon. Now, without further ado, I first invite the President of the European Council, Tusk, to take the floor.
Thank you, Preben. Good afternoon. Yesterday's discussion on migration confirmed the hierarchy of our aims, where protecting our territory, protecting our external borders, as well as stemming illegal migration come first. For me, the answers to two questions which I asked the leaders were key. Firstly, on the need for a financial instrument dedicated to stemming illegal migration in the next multi-annual financial framework. Here, the answer was univocally positive. And in February, we will discuss how to make it a key priority in the MFF. My second question was about reforming the Dublin regulation, including the issue of mandatory quotas. Again, I received a positive answer as to the readiness to work in consensus. Mandatory quotas remain a contentious issue, although its temperature has decreased significantly. If only for this reason, it was worth raising this topic. Will a compromise be possible? It appears very hard, but we have to try our very best. We will assess progress in this respect in March, while the leaders want to make decisions in June. As you remember, my assessment of mandatory quotas is something that created much emotion. Yesterday we heard opinions about the effectiveness or the lack of effectiveness. There was appreciation for the efforts of the countries that have accepted refugees. At the same time, there was agreement that relocation is not a solution to the issue of illegal migration. Two statistics, both of them true, provide a good illustration of this part of the discussion. The first says that out of all the migrants eligible for the relocation, 93% have been distributed among EU member states. The second statistic, which I put forward, says that even if 100% of them were relocated, that would still be less than 2% of the total number of people who applied for asylum in the EU. The dispute around mandatory quotas is not over yet, but I hope that with yesterday's debate, we have managed to clear the air. Now we need to work hard to find a compromise by June. This morning we discussed euro area reform. The summit participants agreed with my proposal that in the next 6 months, the work of our finance ministers should concentrate on areas where the convergence of views is the greatest. Progressing step by step on issues such as the completion of the banking union and the transformation of the ESM into the so-called European Monetary Fund should significantly strengthen the resilience of the EMU. Discussions will continue also on other ideas, which need more time to mature and have a longer-term perspective. I will call the next Euro Summit already in March to continue this discussion. And June could be the moment for us to take the first decisions. Finally, on Brexit. Opening the second phase of our negotiations wouldn't be possible without the unity of the EU 27, the hard work of Michel Barnier, and the constructive effort of Prime Minister May. As for the framework for future relations, it is now time for internal EU 27 preparations and exploratory contacts with the UK to get more clarity on their vision. On that basis, we should adopt guidelines and start negotiations next year. I trust that the unity on the EU side will continue. how important this unity is, I have seen on many occasions, for example, in the context of the European Investment Bank, where the EU is committed to preserving the financing activity of the EIB group and its business model throughout and after Brexit. I hope this positive attitude will also be reflected in other fields. Last but not least, I want to thank the Estonian presidency, Prime Minister Ratas and his excellent team for their great work. Personally, my best memories are of the Digital Summit in Tallinn, which not only demonstrated Estonian leadership in this field, but also helped move Europe forward. Thank you, Yuri, for your effectiveness, hospitality, and good luck.
Thank you very much. And now President Juncker of the European Commission.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I first met Yuri, I said to myself in the plane, or in the car, on the train, or in the office, I don't remember where, this is the beginning of a great friendship. That's exactly what happened. And like our president, I wanted to pay tribute to the Prime Minister, to the ministers, the Estonian ministers, to all those involved. Excellent job, excellent work. You were preserving unity where others wanted to impose division, and so we will always remember, with the best feelings possible, this first Estonian presidency, which was an impressive one.
During this summit, we discussed a certain number of specific policy elements. In particular, the implementation of the social rights. I'm happy to see that the conclusions of the Council express the idea that the ministers are going to begin to work on the basis of this program. We have a first meeting in March. We hope that we'll be able to conclude all the elements by June on the pillar of social rights so that we have this social package in place. The Commission will adopt on the 7th of March a text on the Labour Authority. That's also reflected in the joint declaration of the three presidents of the institutions with regard to the legislative initiatives to be taken in 2018 and 2019. A total of 31 initiatives in all, most of which have been put on the table of Council and the European Parliament by the Commission already. This is the second time we've been working on this exercise, having done that during President Schulz. We've done the same thing under President Tajani to ensure that the work of the Council, Parliament and Commission can be predictable. So that's our roadmap for 2018 and 2019. I'm particularly happy to note that during the Estonian presidency we made significant progress on Europe of defence. In July of 2014, in speaking to the European Parliament, I said that defence is will be one of the main priorities of the Commission, which I have the honour of being president of. You may remember, or you may not remember back then, that those who reacted to this proposal accused me of being naive and not at all realistic. Now, following the initial proposals of the Commission, I now note that we have made significant progress, going well beyond what we achieved over the past 20 years. So clearly, on this point, we have done some good work, and that applies in particular to the permanent structured cooperation, which brings 25 member states together who wish to pursue the same level of ambition, but also 17 specific projects. So a defence union is not just talk, it is specific action, and we in the Commission are going to come up with proposals which will deal in particular with military mobility, and we'll explain to you one day what specifically that means. The European Defence Fund which will see capabilities being pooled, will also emerge. We made proposals with this in mind in November of 2016, and I'm happy to see that the European Council has now rallied around this important task. The social pillar and Gothenburg did not give rise to any issues which could have been controversial, but this is not a poem, it's an agenda which needs to be implemented, and that's something that we will do with commitment. Immigration, everything depends on your point of view. I would say that relocation was a success. Why do I say that? Of the 245,000 eligible migrants, 32,000 were able to be relocated. That's over 80%. Now, Donald has said that this is a small number, and to that extent it's true, but this is precisely in line with what we promised when we launched the relocation program, and I don't understand how that could give rise to such emotion. I don't know why we think that a relocation could be a threat for civilization in Europe. We're talking about a total of 35,000 people. I think Europe and its member states are certainly strong enough to be able to absorb 35,000 individuals. So I think we need to calm things down a bit on that point and get a little less excited. I would like to see the member states contribute more to the African Trust Fund than they've been doing so far. I agree with all those who are continually calling for our external borders to be protected, but that protection is in place. So between now and January, we need 92 further officers, customs officials in Greece. Now, everybody agrees that we need to strengthen the external borders, and I'm expecting the staff levels to be available in Greece very soon, as well as the 114 further personnel we need in Bulgaria. It's not enough to say we need to do this. It's important to be able to allow us to do what we've been doing for the past few months. And on economic and monetary union, here I would like to pay tribute to Jeroen Dijsselbloem, who will be leaving his office very soon. The same applies to Thomas Wieser, who was one of the key players and has been for a long, long time of the Euro group, without whom a lot would not have been available, or not have been possible. A lot was possible because of what he has done. He has served Europe well. So we will see in March, and then again in June, what the progress will have been under the heading Economic and Monetary Union. The President referred to the various elements in the text, and we will come back to that in due course. Although it does need to be said that those who talk about risk reduction might well wish to consult the figures instead, because they will see that the equity of the banks has been increased considerably, and the same applies to the backlogs, which have been reduced by 16% this year alone, which doesn't allow us to say yet that the problem has been fully resolved, but it does nevertheless testify to significant progress. I won't say anything on Brexit. Together with Michel Barnier, I spent many days and indeed nights thrashing out all of the problems under that heading. And you will have noted, I think, that last Friday I got together with Theresa May at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Imposed to the British Prime Minister, but she was a tough, smart, polite and friendly negotiator. We had a meeting with the group of the European parliamentarians being involved in this, and so we were able to conclude that sufficient progress has been made. Now it's up to us to draft the withdrawal agreement together with our British friends, and I hope that this withdrawal treaty will be approved and by the European Parliament and by the House in London. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to Prime Minister Jüri Ratas of the Estonian Presidency of the Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honourable journalists. This last summit of the year has been a perfect fit for the Estonian presidency. We have over the last 2 days delivered on all our main priorities that we set out in July. First, on the number of one concern of our citizens, it is security. Closer defence cooperation, as launched yesterday, is going to make Europe more secure and, of course, more secure for our people. It should also inspire our industry to innovate and cooperate across borders and also the sectors, avoiding costly duplication. One good example of this is the idea to create a military Schengen. Secondly, we want a more social Europe. As seen in Gothenburg and yesterday, this is now a matter for the leaders. As the presidency, we are very happy to highlight the European pillar of social rights and the agreement reached on posting of workers. We have also finished work in the Council needed to turn the Paris Climate Agreement into a reality. Migration is still a very sensitive issue on our table and in Europe. However, even here, we are now talking about prevention and management rather than fighting and crisis response. We can again focus on long-term solutions based on responsibility and also solidarity. The presidency has contributed with its proposals, and I hope that this can be a basis for an agreement among all the member states by June next year. This morning we talked about European monetary union reform. This is still a long road, but again, the European economy is stronger than at any time in a decade. We have growth in all member states. Confidence is at 17-year high. Our companies are doing well and unemployment is down. We are today far from the doom and gloom experienced just 18 months ago. And finally, Brexit was not on our priority list, but it's still very much in our hearts. A divorce is always sad and always very, very difficult. Moreover, it will have an impact on us all. I am very pleased that we have achieved sufficient progress in our negotiations to start discussion also our future relations. The unity of the EU 27 is these negotiations have served us well. My very sincere hope is that we, as the EU 27, can show this unity also in other areas, the EU over the years to come. When Estonia took over the presidency this year in July, we did not have any illusions that next 6 months could solve all the problems of the EU. But we had a clear wish in our hearts that our presidency would result in a slightly better Europe. A Europe that is more hopeful, more united and more confident. Today I can say that Estonia will pass on the responsibility of the presidency to Bulgaria with a calm state of mind, knowing that we are seeing that Europe is back again. Let me thank everyone who has made it and this possible. It is in the end of collective effort the Member States, the Commission, the Parliament, the Council, who has supported us in our step, every step. And of course, special thanks to you, Jean-Claude, and to you, Donald, and also to you, honourable journalists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for your questions, and I think the first question goes to the lady in the third row. Verena, please.
Thank you, Preben. I'm Verena with the German press agency. I have two questions, if I may. One for President Tusk on migration. Did the harsh reaction to your assessment of the quota system lead you to reassess that, to reconsider? And one for President Juncker. Does the German conundrum with the coalition hinder the European reform process, and is the window of opportunity closing?
If you can rephrase your question, because in fact I didn't catch your idea. I didn't change my mind at all. What we need today is an effective method to stop or at least to reduce the influx of illegal migrants to Europe. This is the first and the main condition to re-establish a real control and migration policy. Without this fundamental tool, we are not able to realize any kind of migration policy as a EU, but also as a member states. I have no doubts that, and this, as you mentioned, harsh reaction, this is the best illustration that the topic of mandatory quotas is for sure very important, but this is not the solution for the problem. And on the other hand, this is the most time-consuming issue or dimension when it comes to migration debates and talks here in Brussels and also in other capitals. For me, the most important goal is to keep Europe united in a set of effective action and efforts to stop or reduce this illegal influx. I have no doubts that we need also a very practical illustration of our solidarity. I am not here to, as the President of the European Council, I am not here to represent just one point of view. And because, you know, I cannot agree with the idea that the President of the European Council is impartial or European only as long as he takes the side of the strongest and biggest member states. I don't take sides with any group of member states or regions, including my region. But I do insist on my right and duty, because in fact this is my obligation, to come forward with an honest and factual analysis of the situation. Today I am really happy that the hierarchy is quite clear when it comes to our action in the migration context. And my hope is also that we will find a compromise among member states also when it comes to relocation and mandatory quotas. This is my intention. Of course, I am absolutely aware it would be not the first time that we can use, when the compromise is too difficult, that we can use QMV as a method. But I am absolutely sure that QMV, it's an effective method to take decisions, but for sure QMV is not a synonym of solidarity in politics. It's quite the opposite. This is why, for me, my first intention is to find a compromise, a consensus among all 28, because this is the best method to protect also solidarity as the best kind of relations between our member states. And I have also no doubts that countries from our region should be more ready to demonstrate also solidarity in practice. This is something especially important for me, personally, because solidarity was a kind of brand of Poland, and I will be really disappointed if my country become example of something completely different. But I hope I will convince my colleagues also in Poland to be more open and ready to find a common consensual solution.
Although this question was not directed to me, but no, you put a second question concerning the German coalition government. But I'm grateful to you for having put the question to our president, because this gives me, as a free man coming from a free country on a free continent, the possibility to add some considerations. The debate we had yesterday night was not a too controversial and dramatic debate, because we exchanged views. My point is to say that the problem is not the mandatory relocation of refugees, but the problem is the relocation. The first proposal of the Commission was to relocate on a voluntary basis 40,000 refugees to other countries. 7,000 were invited by other member states to be relocated. So the problem is relocation and not the mandatory relocation. Second, we have a Council decision. I'm sticking to the Council decisions unless they are changed. And I don't have the impression that they will be changed from today to tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. And so in a good understanding and in solidarity with Donald, we'll try to do our best to bring all the 27 or 28 member states to a situation where they can act together, because here too I think that unity has, I can't say to be preserved because it had not been preserved, but has to be re-established. And I would like to say that yesterday morning, together with President Gentiloni, I had a meeting with the prime ministers of the 4 Visegrad countries, and they were pledging 35 million in order to be helpful to the Italian government to protect the central Mediterranean road. So this is a proof of active solidarity which was given by the Visegrad 4 countries yesterday. Zu Ihrer zweiten Frage, die deutschen Koalition.
On the second question on the German coalition negotiations, I'd like to say the following. Unless I'm president of Germany, then I won't have enough, I wouldn't be able to give enough information in that area. But I'm not president yet, though, as I say, once a president, always a president. But I don't believe that it's going to take weeks or months. And even if it does, it's not going to weaken Europe. You know, a country is always only one country. We know that Germany has an influence in the EU, and that's why these dramatic pictures, which we sometimes read in the German press, are not correct when it comes to everyday affairs in Europe. Democracy is democracy, and parties are parties, people are people.
And the next question goes here to the lady in the third row. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, BBC. President Tusk and President Juncker, to get this far on Brexit, there has been some conflict and a lot of compromise. What is needed to get to the end of the next phase? And is Theresa May's goal of a full agreement by March 2019 realistic?
Still realistic and, of course, dramatically difficult. It's for sure the second phase will be, I think, more demanding, more challenging than the first phase. But Jean-Claude is here, our leader in this topic.
Yes, the first issue is the drafting of the withdrawal agreement. We have now, how could I say, a political text putting together what we agreed upon and indicating where we still have to agree. This will be done in the course of the next weeks, and our aim is to have it ratified after October 2018, and I'm convinced that exactly that will be done. In the meantime, the Commission, that means Michel Barnier, in close cooperation with Member States, will organize 5 or 6 seminars dedicated to specific issues where we have to consult the Member States in order to know exactly where the intentions lie. I think that the real negotiations on the second phase will start in March next year. I cannot say when these negotiations will be concluded, but I don't hope that I will have to have an as early morning meeting with the British Prime Minister than the one I had last week.
Thank you. And we turn more to the right, and the lady in the 5th row. Yes, please.
Estonian Public Broadcasting and I would like to talk more about immigration and quota topic to follow up. You were talking about hope to reach compromise, but it's highly probable we will finish with majority vote during summer. Taking account the discussion of yesterday, what's your prediction of outcome? And don't you think it's making more divisions in Europe? And maybe second thing, you were talking about Russian sanctions yesterday. Was there also some kind of discussion and division? Thank you.
I'm not the fan and not the best expert when it comes to QMV. I think it's Jean-Claude.
To Russia.
And for sure, I'm not a fan of Russia yet. It's maybe Jean-Claude is better prepared than me.
The question was quotas. Yeah, but
what is your prediction about the result?
I think.
What's your prediction?
Yeah. Both we were covering the issue. Donald is trying, with my modest help, to reunite member states. This is an important undertaking.
Absolutely.
And I will be helpful in that respect. And I was developing so many initiatives over the last months to achieve exactly that, but it did not happen. I can't make any prediction. I'm not a fan of qualified majority decision taking, but it's in the treaty. And as it is in the treaty, it can be used. I'm not very much in favor of using that because, to some extent, it's always breaking the unity of member states. But some of our colleagues were openly saying yesterday night, if there is no progress, they will propose qualified majority decision-making procedure.
Okay, thank you. And we'll take a last question. You've been patient there. Yes, please.
Just one thing, because maybe it's... one thing was absolutely clear yesterday, that all 28 member states are totally united when it comes to the rollover of sanctions against Russia. And this was, in fact, it's interesting because it was the first time that, in fact, we decided on this without any disputes and arguments.
Thanks. Beata Płomecka, the Polish Radio. Mr. President, and a question to Donald Tusk. You've mentioned your impartiality. How will you react to those saying that you're anti-European? And did you have time to explain it with the President of the European Commission? And as it is the first time of the Polish Prime Minister being here during the summit, if I may ask you and ask for a reply in Polish, did you have an opportunity to talk to him? Do you have in your schedule do you have in your schedule a meeting with the Polish Prime Minister? And as I've mentioned, the President of the European Commission, so I have also a question to you. Commissioner Oettinger is quoted today in the press that the triggering of Article 7 is very possible, is very likely. May I ask you whether it's the Commission has already made this decision? Thank you.
As I mentioned just 5 minutes ago, I am absolutely sure that my position when it comes to migration issue is extremely pro-European, because I'm thinking about Europe as a whole, and I'm absolutely sure that for this we need unity and real solidarity. It means always and everywhere consensus if it is possible, and this is why I will work with a determination and because this is my deepest conviction that especially in this kind of issue like migration, we need a common position and real solidarity. This is why I think it's and in this context I am totally impartial, I am absolutely sure, and extremely pro-European. Drugiej sprawie pytanie dotyczyło.
The second question was on.
Zaproponowałem.
Yes, in my congratulatory note, I proposed to Prime Minister Morawiecki that we meet. I was counting on that meeting, but there has been no response to this suggestion. I'm hoping in the course of future summits, or maybe perhaps during a meeting in Warsaw, if I get the invitation, we'll have an opportunity to sit down and talk longer. But I managed to shake his hand and congratulate him on the fact that he was nominated to the position of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Morawiecki left our summit earlier, but I'm sure he must have had some serious commitments that kept him away from further participation in the debate on Brexit and the reform of the economic and monetary union.
Knowing Donald Tusk for centuries, having been prime ministers together, and now the two presidents of our institutions, that Donald Tusk is not anti-European. He's a pro-European, very committed to the European integration, and if commissioners sometimes, being angry, are saying things of that kind, what they are saying is going beyond what they do think. I know Avramopoulos as a good commissioner, and I think that this is a real misunderstanding, and we shouldn't give more importance to that than it deserves.
It's not so easy to be a commissioner in the Commission, and this is why maybe sometimes the commissioners are so nervous, you know.
I think he mentioned you and not me. Article 7, yeah. No, this will be taken under exam during the next meeting of the Commission. That's the 20th of December. Would I be a commissioner, I would say this will be done and that will be done. But I'm in the same situation than Donald. We are the president of our institution, so we have to take into account different views.
Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. All the best.